The metallic hum of the laboratory filled the air as Dr. Kim leaned closer to the observation window. His large eyes widened with fascination. Behind the transparent barrier lay two humans, peacefully sleeping in stasis pods. Their chest rose and fell with each breath, a simple biological function that somehow seemed extraordinary to the alien scientist. "I have never seen anything like this," Dr. Kim muttered, adjusting his recording device. His gray skin reflected the blue lights of the medical monitors. "Their biological structure defies everything we understand about evolution." Dr. Park moved. Beside him, her slender fingers tapping rapidly on a holographic display. "The preliminary scans are complete. You won't believe what we've found." The research vessel, Evolutionary Paradigm, had been studying sentient species across the galaxy for over 50 standard years. Their database contained biological information from over 2,000 worlds, but humans presented something entirely new. "Look at this," Dr. Park pointed to a rotating 3D model of human organs. "They have redundant systems everywhere, 2 kidneys when one would suffice, a massive liver that can regenerate itself, and this appendix organ that seemingly does nothing at all." Dr. Kim scratched his hairless head. "Inefficient design. Every other species we've encountered evolved toward streamlined biological systems." "That's not all," Dr. Park continued, excitement evident in her voice. "Their immune system is chaotic, almost primitive compared to ours, yet somehow it grants them remarkable resilience." The lab door slid open with a soft hiss as Director Choi entered. His authority was apparent in his formal posture and the distinguished markings on his uniform. "The Council wants answers," he said without greeting. "Are these humans a threat?" Dr. Kim hesitated. "We don't know enough yet. Their biology is unusual." "Unusual how?" Director Choi demanded. Dr. Park displayed another hologram, this one showing human DNA. "Their genetic code contains massive segments we initially classified as junk, non-coding regions that shouldn't do anything. But when we tested their cellular responses to stress, these regions activated in patterns we've never seen before. Like they're hiding backup systems," Dr. Kim added. "Evolutionary redundancies that should have been eliminated millions of years ago." Director Choi frowned. "The scouting reports classified them as a primitive species. Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Technologically, yes," Dr. Kim agreed. "But biologically, they're fascinating." An alert chimed from the stasis pods. The humans were waking up, much earlier than expected. "That's impossible," Dr. Park whispered. "The sedatives should have kept them unconscious for another cycle." They watched as the human male opened his eyes first. Instead of panic, his face showed curiosity. He looked around calmly, taking in his surroundings before gently tapping the pod's interior to wake his companion. "Their metabolism must process chemicals differently," Dr. Kim realized. Another biological quirk. The communication system activated automatically, translating their language. "Hello?" the male human called out. "We know you're watching. We'd like to talk." The female human sat up, seemingly unaffected by the stasis drugs. "We mean no harm. We're just as curious about you as you must be about us." Director Choi stepped back. "They should be terrified. Every other species reacts with fear during first contact." "Should we respond?" Dr. Park asked. Dr. Kim nodded slowly. "The Council wanted information. Let's get it directly." When the 3 aliens entered the containment area, they expected the humans to recoil. Instead, both stood calmly, hands visible in what seemed to be a deliberate show of peace. "I'm Captain Lee," the male human said with a slight bow. "This is Science Officer Choi. Thank you for not restraining us." Dr. Kim blinked in surprise. "You're thanking us? You've been removed from your planet and brought to an alien vessel," Science Officer Choi smiled. "Which means we're the first humans to meet extraterrestrial life. It's an honor, actually." Director Choi stepped forward. "You're not afraid?" "Oh, we're terrified," Captain Lee admitted with a strange expression. His mouth curved upward while speaking of fear. "But we're trained to function despite fear. Isn't that normal?" The aliens exchanged glances. Fear suppression was possible with advanced mental training, but these humans seemed to do it naturally. "We have many questions," Dr. Kim said. "So do we," Science Officer Choi replied, studying the aliens with evident fascination. "Your atmospheric mixture, your biology, your technology, it's all incredible." Dr. Park looked confused. "You're prisoners, yet you're studying us?" Captain Lee shrugged, another uniquely human gesture. "Knowledge is valuable, regardless of circumstances. Besides, you haven't treated us like prisoners. We've taken samples of your tissue without permission," Director Choi stated bluntly, testing their reaction. "We figured as much," Captain Lee responded, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a small puncture mark. "Though next time, you could ask. We might surprise you with our cooperation." Dr. Kim couldn't contain his scientific curiosity any longer. "Your bodies contain redundant organs and systems that should have been eliminated through evolution. Your DNA contains massive non-coding regions. Your immune system is chaotic yet effective. Why is human biology so bizarre?" The two humans exchanged a look that seemed to contain an entire conversation. Then Science Officer Choi answered with a question of her own. "From our perspective, your biology seems strangely limited. Tell me, how many extinction-level events has your species survived?" The simple question silenced the room. The aliens had no answer. "We've counted at least 5 for humans," Captain Lee added quietly. "Maybe that's why we're built differently." The containment chamber had been transformed into a comfortable living space for the two humans. Captain Lee sat cross-legged on his bed, watching as Science Officer Choi carefully documented their surroundings with sketches in a notebook provided by Dr. Kim. "They're studying us while we study them," Captain Lee observed quietly. "I wonder, who's learning more?" "Us, definitely," Choi replied without looking up from her detailed drawing of the air filtration system. "They don't realize how much they're revealing about their technology every time they bring us a new item." The door slid open, and Dr. Kim entered, followed by Dr. Park and 2 assistants carrying scientific equipment. The humans had grown accustomed to these visits over the past week. "Good news," Dr. Kim announced, his translator rendering his chirping language into smooth human speech. "The Federation Council has approved our research proposal. We'd like to conduct some simple tests to understand human adaptability." Captain Lee set aside the alien food he'd been examining. "What kind of tests?" "Nothing harmful," Dr. Park assured them, setting up a monitoring station. "Basic endurance trials, cognitive challenges, stress responses, standard procedures we've conducted with all sentient species." Science Officer Choi closed her notebook. "And what do we get in exchange?" The aliens looked confused. Dr. Kim tilted his head. "Exchange? Information sharing," Captain Lee clarified. "We participate in your tests. You answer our questions about your species and others you've encountered." The aliens huddled together, speaking rapidly in their native tongue before Dr. Kim turned back. That would be acceptable within security parameters. 3 days later, Dr. Kim stared at his monitoring screen in disbelief. The data couldn't be right. He ran the analysis again, but the results remained unchanged. "Impossible," he whispered. "Computer, verify baseline readings for human subjects," the computer chirped back. "Baseline confirmed. Current readings show 17% increase in lung capacity and 22% increase in oxygen utilization since testing began." Dr. Park burst into the lab, her normally composed demeanor shattered. "Have you seen today's endurance results? They completed the high-gravity challenge in half the expected time." "Something's happening with their physiology," Dr. Kim agreed, pulling up comparison scans. "Look at these before and after cellular images. Their bodies are adapting to our test conditions at an unprecedented rate." "That's not all," Dr. Park added, lowering her voice. "Director Choi is concerned about their cognitive tests. They're learning our computer systems faster than anticipated. The linguistic team says they're picking up our native language without the translators." A warning tone sounded from one of the lab stations. Both scientists rushed over to see multiple alerts flashing on the screen. "What's happening?" Dr. Park asked. "It's their DNA," Dr. Kim replied, his voice filled with awe. "The segments we classified as junk DNA are activating. It's as if as if their bodies contained dormant genetic instructions for adapting to almost any condition. Director Choi stormed into the lab. "Explain this," he demanded, projecting a hologram that showed Captain Lee performing physical feats that should have been impossible for humans based on their initial assessments. "We think human DNA contains evolutionary memories," Dr. Kim said, slowly. "Genetic adaptations from countless survival challenges throughout their history, preserved rather than discarded. That contradicts every evolutionary principle we know," Director Choi argued. "Exactly," Dr. Park whispered. "Their entire biology contradicts what we know about evolution." "The tests must end," Director Choi ordered. "The Council is concerned." Across the ship, unaware of the aliens' growing unease, Science Officer Choi sat in the observation room designed to test human responses to various atmospheric conditions. But instead of monitoring her own reactions, she was studying the room itself. "Found it," she murmured, identifying a pattern in how the ship's systems regulated environmental controls. She'd been mapping these patterns for days, building a mental model of alien technology. Captain Lee entered, having just completed another round of physical tests. "You won't believe what happened. They put me in a chamber with triple our normal gravity and I could still move around. It was difficult at first, but then it got easier." "Our bodies are adapting," Choi replied, "and I don't think they expected that." The door opened, revealing Dr. Kim with a troubled expression. "We need to discuss something concerning." He led them to the main laboratory, where a holographic display showed microscopic images of human cells. "These are your cellular structures, from when you arrived," Dr. Kim explained, gesturing to the left side. "And these are current samples," he continued, pointing to the right. "Your bodies are undergoing rapid adaptation at the cellular level." "Is that dangerous?" Captain Lee asked. "Not for you," Dr. Kim replied carefully. "But the Council, they're concerned. Your DNA contains something we've never seen before. Dormant genetic instructions that activate under stress." "Science Officer." Choi leaned forward, studying the images. "You mean our junk DNA isn't junk at all?" "It appears to be a vast library of survival mechanisms," Dr. Kim confirmed. "Like your bodies remember every evolutionary branch your species ever explored and kept the instructions just in case." "That's why you look so worried," Captain Lee realized. "Your council fears what we might become if these adaptations continue." Before Dr. Kim could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The laboratory door sealed automatically as red lights flashed. "What's happening?" Captain Lee demanded. Dr. Kim's expression became grave. "Quarantine protocols. Someone has classified humans as a potential biological threat." "That's ridiculous," Choi protested. "We haven't done anything." "You don't understand," Dr. Kim said, quietly. "In our society, species are valued for their specialization. Perfect adaptation to specific environments through carefully pruned evolutionary trees. But humans, you keep everything. You're walking genetic libraries that can rapidly adapt to almost any condition. Some consider that unnatural." Captain Lee's eyes narrowed. "You're saying we're being quarantined because our biology is too adaptable?" "The militant faction of the Federation fears what they don't understand," Dr. Kim admitted. "And they definitely don't understand humans." The scientists moved to a secure terminal and began bypassing security protocols. "I'm granting you access to our research database. If they're treating you as a threat, you deserve to know what you're facing." Science Officer Choi approached the terminal. "And what will you do, Doctor?" Dr. Kim looked at the humans with new respect. "I'm going to continue studying you, but now we'll be learning from each other." The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the laboratory as Captain Lee paced the room. 3 days had passed since the quarantine protocols were activated, confining them to this section of the ship. Science Officer Choi hadn't moved from the terminal Dr. Kim had unlocked, absorbing information about the Galactic Federation at an alarming rate. "They've classified Earth as a potential plague world," Choi announced, looking up from the screen with disbelief. Commander Sun is leading a fleet to establish a planetary quarantine. Captain Lee stopped pacing. They can't possibly have the authority to isolate an entire planet. Actually, they do. Dr. Kim entered the room, looking exhausted. He'd been fighting the quarantine order through official channels without success. The Federation's primary directive is to protect galactic biodiversity. Any species deemed a biological threat falls under military jurisdiction. But we haven't threatened anyone, Lee protested. Dr. Kim sighed, settling into a chair. It's not what you've done. It's what you are. Your adaptive capabilities frighten them. Most species take thousands of generations to adapt to new environments. Humans do it within days. The door slid open again as Dr. Park rushed in, clutching a data pad. You need to see this, she said, projecting a holographic display. The quarantine fleet has reached your solar system, but they're reporting something unexpected. The hologram showed alien ships approaching not just Earth, but Mars, the Moon, and several space stations in orbit around different planets. Human colonies, Captain Lee explained with a hint of pride. We've been expanding throughout our solar system for the past 30 years. The aliens stared at him in shock. Dr. Park spoke first. These environments, the lunar surface, Martian, atmosphere, they're completely hostile to life as we understand it. We adapted, Choi said simply. Artificial habitats at first, then gradually modified environments to suit our needs. Dr. Kim studied the holographic display with growing concern. The Mars colony shows atmospheric modification already underway. You're terraforming a dead planet? We're bringing it to life, Lee corrected. The process will take centuries, but we've started. Commander Sun's angular face appeared on the main communication screen, interrupting their conversation. His voice was cold and precise. Dr. Kim, your research specimens have become a Federation security matter. Prepare them for transfer to my vessel. Dr. Kim stepped protectively in front of the humans. With respect, Commander, these are diplomatic representatives of a newly discovered sentient species. They're not specimens to be transferred. Their biology represents a clear threat, Commander Sun replied. Their DNA contains adaptation mechanisms that could destabilize ecosystems across the galaxy. My scientists have reviewed your research and concluded that humans are potentially more dangerous than any species we've encountered. Science Officer Choi moved beside Dr. Kim. Commander, if I may, our biology isn't a weapon. It's a survival mechanism. That's precisely the problem, Sun responded. Your kind survives where others would perish, adapts where others would fail. Left unchecked, humans could outcompete specialized species across countless worlds. We have no interest in replacing other species, Captain Lee argued. We seek cooperation, not domination. The commander's expression remained unchanged. Noble words, but biology doesn't care about intentions. My fleet will maintain quarantine around all human settlements until the Council decides your fate. The screen went dark, leaving an uncomfortable silence in the laboratory. What happens now? Lee asked quietly. Dr. Kim exchanged looks with Dr. Park before responding. Now we prove Commander Sun wrong. We need to demonstrate that human adaptability isn't a threat. It's an asset. Dr. Park nodded in agreement. The Council responds to evidence, not fear. We need data showing positive applications of human biology. Over the next week, the Unlikely Alliance worked tirelessly. The humans volunteered for new tests designed to showcase the benefits of their adaptive capabilities. Dr. Kim documented how human immune systems responded to simulated pathogens, while Dr. Park studied their remarkable tissue regeneration. Look at this, Dr. Park called excitedly one morning, displaying microscopic images of human cells interacting with alien tissue samples. Their stem cells can be programmed to generate compatible tissues for other species. This could revolutionize our medical treatments. Dr. Kim was equally fascinated by his findings. Their immune system doesn't just fight off infections, it remembers them. Each exposure creates a blueprint for future defense. Science Officer Choi looked up from her work. That's how vaccines work for us. We introduce a weakened pathogen so our bodies learn to recognize the threat. Preventative immunity, Dr. Kim marveled. Our species focus on treatment, not prevention. Their research breakthrough came 3 days later, when an urgent message interrupted their work. A mysterious illness had broken out on one of Commander Sun's vessels. Several crew members were critically ill, and the ship's medical team couldn't identify the pathogen. It appears to be some kind of adaptive microorganism, Dr. Kim explained, reviewing the transmitted data. It's mutating faster than their treatments can respond. Captain Lee leaned over his shoulder, studying the molecular structure. It looks similar to something we encountered on our first Mars mission, a dormant bacteria that activated when exposed to our habitat environment. You've seen this before? Dr. Park asked, surprised. Not exactly the same, but similar enough, Lee replied. We developed a treatment using our own antibodies. The bacteria kept adapting, but our immune systems adapted faster. Dr. Kim looked thoughtful. Commander Sun's quarantine policy has backfired. His ship needs help that only humans can provide. The communication channel to Commander Sun's vessel opened, revealing a much less confident military leader. Dr. Kim, our medical situation is deteriorating. We've lost 3 crew members already. Commander, we might have a solution, Dr. Kim replied. But it requires cooperation with the humans. The commander's expression hardened. Out of the question. Their biology is the reason for quarantine in the first place. Actually, Science Officer Choi interrupted, stepping into view. Your quarantine is probably what's killing your crew. You've been so focused on containing us that you failed to notice we might be helpful. Explain, Sun demanded. Human blood contains antibodies that can fight the pathogen affecting your crew, Dr. Kim explained. Captain Lee has encountered a similar organism before. The commander's face showed the first hint of doubt. And you're offering to help? After we've imprisoned you? That's what humans do, Captain Lee said simply. We adapt, we survive. And, when possible, we help others survive too. Hours later, as the treatment derived from human blood began saving lives on Commander Sun's ship, Dr. Kim stood with the humans in the observation deck, watching the stars. The Council has received our research, he said quietly, and now they have practical evidence of human biological value. Do you think it will change their minds? Lee asked. Dr. Kim smiled. They're already reconsidering the quarantine order. Commander Sun's report was quite humbling. Science Officer Choi gazed out at the distant pinpoints of light. So what happens next in this biological arms race? Perhaps it stops being a race, Dr. Kim suggested, and becomes a partnership instead. The main laboratory of the evolutionary paradigm hummed with activity as researchers from both species worked side by side. The quarantine had been lifted 2 weeks ago, replaced by a scientific exchange program that had transformed the ship into a hub of collaborative research. Captain Lee stood at the center of this controlled chaos, watching Science Officer Choi work alongside Dr. Kim on a complex genetic analysis. Still can't believe they went from trying to isolate us to asking for our help, Lee commented, accepting a cup of steaming liquid that vaguely resembled coffee from Dr. Park. The Federation values solutions, Dr. Park replied, sipping her own beverage. When your blood samples saved Commander Sun's crew, opinions changed quickly, Lee smiled. Nothing like a common enemy to bring people together. Speaking of enemies, Dr. Park lowered her voice. Have you heard the rumors? The pathogen that infected Commander Sun's ship wasn't natural. Some think it was engineered. Before Lee could respond, an excited shout drew their attention. Science Officer Choi was staring at a holographic display, her expression a mixture of shock and wonder. Captain, you need to see this, she called, waving him over. The display showed 2 DNA strands rotating side by side. One was human, now, familiar to everyone on the ship. The other was unlike anything Lee had seen before. What am I looking at? He asked. Dr. Kim's voice trembled slightly as he explained. The sample on the right comes from our most secured database. It's genetic material recovered from artifacts left by the architects. Lee looked confused. The who? The architects, Dr. Park whispered reverently. A species that supposedly seeded intelligent life throughout the galaxy. Most consider them a myth like your human legends of gods or ancient aliens. But they were real, Dr. Kim continued. And look at these matching sequences. He highlighted sections of both DNA strands that pulsed with identical patterns. Human DNA contains fragments that match the architect's genetic code. A heavy silence fell over the lab. The implications were enormous. That's impossible, Commander Sun's voice cut through the quiet. He had entered unnoticed during the revelation. The architects are a story told to explain the galaxy's biodiversity. Even if they existed, they vanished millions of years before. Humans evolved. Science Officer Choi turned to face him. Unless they didn't vanish, unless they became us. The commander's face darkened. Preposterous. Humans are a primitive species from a backwater solar system. A primitive species with remarkably adaptive DNA that contains sequences matching your mythical precursors, Captain Lee pointed out. Seems like more than coincidence. Dr. Kim intervened before the tension could escalate. We need more data before making conclusions. Commander, with your permission, I'd like to access the complete architect database. Sun hesitated, then nodded curtly. The Council will want explanations. I'll arrange clearance. 3 days later, the ship's main conference room had been transformed into a research center dedicated to what was now called the Architect Connection. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing comparative analyses between human DNA and the fragments recovered from ancient sites across the galaxy. It's like looking at a puzzle with most pieces missing, Dr. Park said, gesturing to the fragmented data. The architects left traces on hundreds of worlds, but never enough to reconstruct their full genetic code. Except we might already have it, Dr. Kim suggested, pointing to the human genome display. What if humans aren't descendants of the architects, but are the architects, or at least what they became? Science Officer Choi looked up from her terminal. That doesn't make sense. Our fossil record clearly shows human evolution on Earth, from primitive mammals to modern humans. Yes, but look at this, Dr. Kim highlighted a section of data. Every other sentient species we've documented shows clear signs of genetic engineering, specific modifications for their home environments. Their evolution follows predictable, efficient paths. And humans don't, Captain Lee realized. Exactly, Dr. Kim agreed. Human evolution is chaotic, filled with apparent dead ends and inexplicable jumps. You've survived multiple extinction events that should have wiped out your species. And unlike every other intelligent species, your DNA contains vast sections that appear dormant until needed. Commander Sun, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. You're suggesting the architects designed humans as some sort of backup plan? A species that could survive when others failed? Or they became humans, Dr. Park suggested. What if the architects facing extinction encoded their knowledge into a new species, one designed to evolve naturally through countless challenges? Like hiding their legacy in plain sight, Science Officer Choi murmured. Creating a species that would appear to have evolved naturally, but carrying their genetic legacy. Captain Lee shook his head, overwhelmed. You're saying we're some kind of genetic time capsule? It would explain the redundancies in your biology, Dr. Kim said excitedly. Systems that make no evolutionary sense unless they were deliberately included. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Finally, Science Officer Choi spoke up. There's one way to test this theory. She approached a terminal and began accessing files. I've been studying the Federation's medical database. Several species are suffering from genetic degradation, the result of too much specialization. If humans really carry architect DNA, and if the architects did design all sentient life, then human DNA might contain the keys to saving these species, Dr. Park finished, catching on quickly. Commander Sun looked skeptical. That's a significant leap in logic. But testable, Dr. Kim pointed out. We could attempt gene therapy using adapted human DNA sequences. Wouldn't that just create human-alien hybrids? Captain Lee asked, concerned. Science Officer Choi shook her head. Not if we're careful. We'd only use specific regulatory sequences, the parts of DNA that control how other genes express themselves. Dr. Park was already pulling up case files. The trillion species is facing extinction due to genetic collapse. Their immune systems are failing after centuries of living in artificially purified environments. A perfect test case, Dr. Kim agreed. With their permission, of course. A week later, they gathered around a medical pod containing a trillion volunteer. The small, frail being had been suffering from multiple immune disorders that had plagued his species for generations. After careful consideration, he had agreed to be the first recipient of what they were calling architect therapy, targeted genetic modifications using sequences from human DNA. Vital signs stable, Dr. Park announced, monitoring the readings. Immune response activating. Everyone watched in tense silence as the medical pod's display showed the treatment taking effect. Dormant immune cells began to activate, attacking the infections that had been slowly killing the trillion. It's working, Dr. Kim whispered in awe. The human DNA fragments are reactivating genetic pathways that have been dormant in his species for thousands of years. Commander Sun, who had remained skeptical throughout the process, stepped closer to examine the readings. This is unprecedented. This is just the beginning, Science Officer Choi said quietly. If human DNA can reactivate these pathways in one species, it could work for others, Captain Lee finished. All those species struggling with genetic dead ends could have a second chance. Dr. Kim looked at the humans with new respect. Your bizarre biology isn't a threat to galactic biodiversity. It might be the key to preserving it. The trillion in the pod opened his eyes, looking healthier than he had in years. His translator conveyed his simple question. Did it work? Dr. Park smiled, looking from the trillion to the humans. Yes, she replied. It seems the architects left us more than just ruins after all. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward in sweeping arches, designed to accommodate representatives from thousands of worlds. Captain Lee stood at the center of the circular floor, feeling remarkably small under the gaze of so many alien eyes. The tiered seating rose around him like a massive bowl, filled with beings of every imaginable form. Some breathed different atmospheres in special chambers, others floated in liquid environments, while many appeared roughly humanoid despite their varied colors and features. Science Officer Choi stood beside him, outwardly calm, though Lee could sense her nervous energy. 6 months ago, they had been captives on a research vessel. Now they addressed the highest authority in the Federation as Earth's first official representatives. The Council recognizes Dr. Kim of the Research Division, announced the Chief Counselor, a tall being with iridescent skin and 4 upper limbs. Present your findings on the human biological situation. Dr. Kim stepped forward, now wearing the formal attire of a senior Federation scientist, a significant promotion from his previous position. Honorable counselors, the data is conclusive. What we initially perceived as biological abnormalities in humans represents an evolutionary approach fundamentally different from our own. He activated a holographic display visible to all present. It showed a comparison between standard evolutionary trees and the tangled web that represented human development. Every Federation species evolved through specialization, Dr. Kim explained. Natural selection favored traits optimized for specific environments, discarding alternatives as inefficient. This created perfectly adapted species, but with limited, adaptive potential when environments changed. The display shifted to show human DNA strands with highlighted sections. Humans followed a different path. Rather than discarding genetic information, they retained it, storing the biological memories of countless evolutionary branches in what we dismissed as junk DNA. This created redundancy and inefficiency, but also remarkable adaptability. A murmur rippled through the assembled representatives. One counselor, representing a gaseous species contained within a mechanical apparatus, spoke up. This explains their physical adaptability, but not the connection to the architects your report mentions. Dr. Kim nodded respectfully. The connection became clear when we successfully treated genetic degradation in 17 different Federation species using human DNA templates. The holographic display showed before and after images of various beings, including the first Trillian volunteer, who now stood healthy among the Earth delegation. These treatments didn't create human-alien hybrids, Dr. Kim continued. Rather, the regulatory sequences in human DNA reactivated dormant genetic pathways already present in these species, pathways identical to those found in architect artifacts. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembly. The chief counselor leaned forward. Are you suggesting all sentient life shares a common designer? The evidence points to more than common design, Dr. Kim replied. It suggests common purpose. The architects appear to have seeded specialized species throughout the galaxy, each adapted to specific environmental niches, but they also created humans, or what would become humans, as a repository for the complete genetic library. Captain Lee stepped forward, sensing it was time for a human perspective. Counselors, we don't claim to be superior or more important than any species here. If our biology contains elements of this ancient legacy, it was through no achievement of our own. We simply evolved differently, keeping our options open, you might say. Science Officer Choi added, our redundant organs, our messy immune systems, our ability to adapt to extreme conditions, these aren't signs of advanced design but of evolutionary caution. We're inefficient by your standards because we never specialized. A representative from a crystalline species spoke next. This information would be merely academic, except for the pathogen situation. Reports indicate it has now reached 12 core worlds. The mood in the chamber darkened. The engineered pathogen that had first appeared on Commander Sun's ship had spread despite containment efforts. Its ability to adapt to treatments had baffled Federation medical experts. Dr. Park, who had been working tirelessly on the problem, activated her own display. The pathogen shows signs of deliberate engineering. It targets specific genetic weaknesses common to Federation species, weaknesses resulting from evolutionary specialization. Yet humans remain immune, noted Commander Sun, his former hostility, replaced by grudging respect. He had become an unexpected ally after the treatment developed from human blood saved his crew. Not exactly immune, Captain Lee clarified. We get sick too. The difference is our immune systems adapt alongside the pathogen. It's a biological arms race where both sides keep evolving. Science Officer Choi continued the explanation. We've discovered a temporary transfer method. Human antibodies can be modified to work in other species, providing immunity without requiring genetic modification. A stopgap measure, Dr. Kim acknowledged. But it buys time to develop permanent solutions tailored to each species. The chief counselor's inner membranes pulsed with what the humans had learned was their equivalent of deep thought. What you propose is unprecedented, a galaxy-wide medical intervention based on human biology. The alternative is watching the pathogen spread, Commander Sun stated bluntly. My fleet has already begun distributing the human-derived treatments to affected worlds. The results are promising. The council chambers erupted in discussion, thousands of representatives debating simultaneously. Captain Lee stood his ground in the center, remembering how differently this meeting might have gone if humans had been treated as a threat rather than a resource. After the debate subsided, the chief counselor raised his upper limbs for silence. This council has reached a decision. Earth will be granted protected status as a biological reservoir. Human genetic diversity must be preserved for the benefit of all sentient life. Science Officer Choi smiled at the formal language. They're calling us a biological reservoir. Better than bizarre, I suppose. Captain Lee nodded. We'll take it, the chief counselor continued. Furthermore, humans will be invited to join Federation exploration teams. Your adaptive capabilities make you uniquely suited for encountering unknown environments and species. As the formal proceedings concluded, Dr. Kim approached the human representatives. There's something else you should know. The Council has authorized a mission to investigate a star system at the edge of the galaxy. Long-range scans detected energy signatures matching those from architect artifacts. They think they've found the architect's homeworld? Captain Lee asked, intrigued. Possibly. The mission leaves in 1 month. Dr. Kim looked at them meaningfully. I've requested to lead the scientific team, and I'd like both of you to join. Me. Science Officer Choi's eyes widened. You think we might find answers about the human connection? I think, Dr. Kim said carefully, that if any species can help us understand the architects, it's humans. Your biology contains their legacy in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Captain Lee gazed up at the diverse assembly of beings that now looked to humans not with fear, but with hope. From captives to saviors to explorers, not bad for a species with bizarre biology. As they prepared to leave the council chambers, a small Trillian child approached them. The Trillians had been the first species saved by the human treatments, and their gratitude was evident in the child's gesture. A small, carved statue depicting human and Trillian hands clasped together. My grandfather says we share the same ancient blood now, the child said through a translator. Is that true? Science Officer Choi knelt down to the child's level. In a way, we're all connected, just in ways we didn't understand before. Captain Lee watched the exchange with a profound sense of wonder. They had traveled across the stars to make first contact with alien life, only to discover that perhaps they weren't so alien after all. Different branches of the same ancient family tree, separated by time and space but carrying the same fundamental inheritance? Perhaps, Dr. Kim said as they departed. The question isn't why human biology is so bizarre, but why the rest of us evolved to be so limited. Maybe that's what we're going to find out, Captain Lee replied, looking toward the stars that awaited them.